Hi, everybody. I'm Pat Vanderwall, bass drummer with the Shannon Rovers.
And I'm Marc Horner, bagpiper with the Shannon Rovers.
And we're here to present the official podcast, Good Craic, 100 Years with the Shannon Rovers. Horner, can you believe it's been that long?
I cannot, I can almost count that high. But just like any other bagpipe performance, I guarantee you're going to experience a wide range of emotions listening to these episodes. You're going to laugh, you're going to cry, you're going to hear stories you've never heard before.
Yeah, we have a great lineup of guests, past, present, and hopefully future Rovers. Stories you've never heard before. We can't wait to give it to you.
So enough of the two of us. Let's get under the kilt.
Hope you enjoy the episode. You obviously still have a lot of relatives over in Ireland and stuff, and they come and visit you, and you come and visit them. I think that's pretty cool. Are they at all, what are their thoughts on the band? Do they have any thoughts on the band? Do they think it's cool? Do they think it's weird? Because Billy brought this up before, that in certain parts of Ireland, the pipes are very strongly associated with the Scots, too. So that might not be as received as warmly if you just walked in and started playing at a pub, right? I think, and Marc and Billy had said they experienced that once. Where was it?
That was the 2004 trip to Ireland. I have a memory of walking into a bar in Galway with a small group, and we were going to go do what we do in Chicago, and the reception was quite chilly. It was not. It was not a Chicago reception.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that's more about being an American.
It could have been.
Sometimes too, yeah.
You know what? It's interesting you say that, because I also remember we did run into a little bit of anti-American stuff. So no pipes. Yeah. We were in street clothes. Yeah. A little bit of anti-American stuff. I think that was Gulf War
time. Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah. The second Iraq.
Yes. I would agree with that, because I've never been in Ireland. I'm like, ooh. Yeah. But it's funny. Still, when we go back, his relatives still refer to us as Yanks.
Sure.
They still call us the Yanks. I'm like, the Yanks, really? I thought that was World War II,
Yeah, right.
I mean, we're just back, and the Yanks are here. Okay, all right.
I went to, when my wife Colleen and I were dating, one of her father, Larry Mulcrone, from the Illinois State Police and from McCormick Place and everything like that, law enforcement guy, had done his genealogy and connected with his Irish cousins. And they had been back and forth and been to the family, residence and all that kind of stuff that stays in your family for generations, and that goes to the oldest, right, of the next generation. And so one of the cousins' kids were getting married. So they invited the Mulcrones, the Yanks, over from America. And Colleen's like, do you want to go with? And I'm like, can I go with? Because we're not married and we're not engaged yet, but I'm sure it's a trip to Ireland. So I went with her brother and Colleen and her parents, and everywhere we went, the cousin would run, we'd like to thank the Yanks are here. Wave your hands, Yanks. All the Yanks are here. So same kind of thing.
Yeah, the Yanks are coming. Yeah, right. That's what I always felt like.
Over there. Yeah, so it's but I assume that your family members think it's kind of neat that you guys are in a band. I would imagine maybe the novelty's worn off over the years.
I don't think so. Now, my grandparents were from Limerick. Both were from Limerick, and that's where Tommy was from as well. So I think Tommy he was great friends with my parents as the years went on, and that there was that affiliation too. But it's just. I kind of lost what I was going to say.
No, just that they're aware of the band, and you guys
family, Well, when you think of it, then after years later, my brother-in-law joined the band as a drummer, and then his son joined the band as a drummer. And then on your side, there was your brother-in-law John that you started with, your brother Philly, his three sons were all in the band. Then other ones in the family had made stabs at trying to join the band, learning the pipes and drums, and didn't quite make it in that, but there was always a lot of family in the band, Yeah.
Well, our children, of course.
And Shay and Liam.
Yeah.
And Patrick carried a flag.
He was in the color guard.
He did. Yeah. He tells me he likes the pipes. I said, don't wait too much longer, because who knows?
Yeah, right. Tell me about it.
You wait.
And our daughter Maeve was an Irish dancer, so
that's great.
She spent her time doing that instead of with the Rovers.
Sure.
Although she danced with the Rovers, so.
And so did I. Nancy Taylor and I, we used to get out there when we would play at, especially at bars and like that. And then they'd say, would you do a dance? Well, okay. So we get out and we do the Irish jig, and, everybody loved it and whatever. And we were out, I was with, I think it might have been Susie and the Unrights one time. And we were out playing. So we would you dance? So the two of us got out, we did the jig, the band's playing, jig behind us and that. And then maybe when the second time we went to play, I said, would you dance again? We looked at each other. Well, we only know the jig.
Yeah,
so that's what we're going to do. So we decided, okay. And we would stand next to each other and dance, and hold hands and dance together. All right. you stand over there, I'll stand over there, we'll face each other, and then do the jig. So we thought it would look different if we
Switch it up.
kind of switched it up a little bit where we were standing, and we did it again.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they probably loved it just as much as the first one. They probably didn't know any better, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
The planning of the St. Patrick's Day parade, back to the plumbers and the involvement of the parade. What's the glide path of that through the course of the year? Does that start like the day after the parade's done, or you guys take a break, or what all goes into putting on? It's a huge event.
It is, and probably even more so now. It's soon after it's over, I think that they probably a couple of months after they start up again. I know back when I was doing it, it was probably 4 or 5 months beforehand. You'd be down in the office and mailing out mailers, and you have a whole group of people down there stuffing envelopes, but it's different now.
Yeah, emails have helped a little bit.
Yeah,
Oh, quite a bit.
making
yeah,
phone
yeah,
calls
yeah.
for ads. I did that for many years.
And
Yeah.
is there lobbying inside the plumbers union about being involved in that? I would imagine that's a position that people would like to be a part of. That there's more people that would want to be involved in it than maybe there are spaces for
No,
work to be done.
I mean, the plumbers union fully takes on running the parade, and they get a bunch of volunteers, and a lot of day of help is in abundance. But the actual managing and the logistics portion is kind of like a small group that ebbs and flows a little bit throughout the years, but it's about the same 10 to 15 people. Obviously, you got Michelle runs the parade, and then you got Jim as the chairman, and Lisa Oakes and Tony Rotman are currently heavily involved in that kind of stuff. But you've got those 5 or 6 people that run it, and then they get the help from the union members and family members and friends and that kind of stuff for the Queen's contest and for the corned beef and cabbage dinner and the parade itself. So they definitely do have a lot of help, but I would say it's a small, what would you say, maybe 5 to 10 people are heavily involved in the actual full production.
Yeah.
Which is down compared to what it used to be, but also
Right.
that's the advent of modern technology.
Oh yeah, computers.
It
It makes
everything
it
changes
so much
everything.
easier. Yeah,
Sure.
you're not sitting there. I mean, you might sit there for 5 or 6 hours on a Saturday just licking envelopes and putting stamps on.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to do that anymore.
No,
But, yeah,
those days are gone.
those days are gone. Yeah, for good and bad.
Yeah.
Billy, you mentioned the Queen's contest, corned beef. So the totality of the St. Patrick's Day season, for maybe the people are just familiar with the parade.
Yeah.
all the other events that go on leading up to the parade.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like you have 4 huge events, and 2 of them happen to take place on the same day. Because you have the corned beef and cabbage dinner, you have the Queen's contest, you have the river dyeing, and you have the parade. So all 4 of those major events have a lot of legwork and a lot of planning and choreographing between the mayor's office, between Chicago Police Department, between the fire department, between Wendella Boats being almost like a vendor and all that kind of stuff. So you have like massive logistical and events going on. That the corned beef and cabbage and the Queen's contest take place at the hall, which is nice that it's kind of in-house and you know the lay of the land and everything else. But with
That's on the near west side of the city.
at 1340 West Washington. So on the near west side, right off of Ogden there in Washington, not far from the United Center. So like that's where the Queen's contest and the corned beef and cabbage take place. And then obviously the river dyeing, which has been at Wolf Point for the last couple of years, but it was right at Wacker for a long time.
So let me jump into that real quick, as having enough plumber personnel here that might be able to add some color to this. When did that come about? Do we know what year that came about with the dyeing of the river approximately? And how did that come about? Was that just the brainchild of one day, like, hey, you know what we could really do? We could pull this off. We could dye the river green.
You mean originally?
Yes.
I think you would.
Yeah, I know.
With your
I know the
father.
story of that. What you call that
I call it sewer dye.
sewer dye.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call that, but they discovered one time that when they're checking pipes
Food
for leaks,
coloring.
Yeah.
and you could, correct me if I'm right, they're
Big-
checking pipes for leaks. They would put this
Food coloring.
Food coloring.
food coloring,
yeah.
and they noticed they would put it in green, and no, it
Orange.
turned it orange, and when it would hit water, it would turn green. So if the water came out and it was green, they knew there was a leak. So then they got the brainchild. I think, was it Steve Bailey, the head of the plumbers union? Why don't we dye the river green? It would have been him because it wasn't the Mayor Daley, but he agreed that it was okay. So back then, when they used to do it, there was a family. I believe, was it the Butler family?
Yeah.
The Butler family who used to be in charge of doing this. and it was just a motorboat, a crummy little motorboat. And you would see the guys out there, and they'd have their, I don't know what this
The orange powder.
it came in,
Buckets.
buckets or whatever. And you see them with these sifters. They look like the kind that you would sift flour in if you're making a cake. And they would pour it in there, and they would sift it as they were at the back of the boat by the motor as they were going along. And then the motor would mix the
churn up the water.
churn up the water and mix it in, and then it would turn green.
Yeah.
And then the boat would traverse back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, mixing it in.
To keep churning it.
To mix it more in with the water. And by the time they were done, these men were covered in orange.
Yeah.
They were completely orange.
They look like Oompa Loompas from Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
That's what they look like.
Yeah,
by the
because they
time it's
started
done.
wearing like coveralls, and then they would just be covered with their
And the
faces,
hazmat
everything.
suits they wear now, the white hazmat.
Right,
Yeah. So that's how it was done. And they never wanted anybody, they would never tell you when the river was going to be dyed. So there was next to nobody watching this on the day. It was always on St. Patrick's Day, and always on the 17th, which the parade always used to be on the 17th. So there was hardly anybody watching unless you just happened to be by the river. We only saw the magic later on, a couple hours later when you come down. They're like, the river's green. This is great. It's beautiful.
But it wasn't a thing at all. It was just you went down there, all of a sudden you saw the river green.
Well, they
It
didn't want
wasn't like it
anybody
is
to
today.
know.
Well, now they know how they can make money off it. They rent the
Yeah.
boats out. You can buy tickets. People have them as raffle
yeah.
prizes.
It's an
It's
And
an
actually-
event.
and
More so even the parade.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Rovers started that too, actually, with when we had that
Playing on the shore.
playing there, and then we had the boat. We had the first boat on there playing while they were doing the river and that, and then plumbers got a hold of it. And they took it over, and so that was the end of it for us. It was a fundraiser for us, selling tickets on the boat to watch the river being dyed green. But they never wanted anybody to see it simply because there were a few questions raised about what they were putting in the river.
Sure.
And in order to not draw undue attention to this, they never would publicize when it was going to be done. And for that reason,
Got it, sure.
So now it's become such a big thing, and I think when that travel magazine that used to come out, what's it called, Inside Chicago or something, when it was always published downtown. It was a little by probably the Chicago Chamber of Commerce or something like that. And they had a full spread about that. And I think then it started gaining notoriety, and the pictures were beautiful, and it got to be a bigger and bigger thing to where it is now. But it was very quiet back then. Very, very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do remember the year after we 2020, the parade got canceled. But then again, 2021, I remember we weren't back to full normalcy yet. So I don't think there was a parade in 2021 either.
No,
we missed two parades.
There was a small parade in the parking lot, but yeah, it wasn't a big parade.
But we kind of again, to the tradition of a veil of secrecy, the plumbers did dye the river in 2021, even though there was not going to be a parade. Like St. Patrick's Day, like normal. And we played on one of the bridges. Remember, Billy?
Yeah, we did. We played on one of the bridges.
Great picture.
During
we didn't
the
tell anybody. We're wearing masks. I remember because the masks we're still all masked up.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, to kind of get the hopes of the city of we're returning to normalcy soon, you went down there and it was green.
Yeah,
We didn't advertise it. It was more of an old school throwback to what you're talking about too, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't
Yeah.
the big Wendella boats with everybody on cheering, which is amazing. I've been fortunate enough to be in a group that dyes the river several times. And when the weather cooperates and you're on that boat and you see the miles of riverfront being, people are 10 deep up and down the Chicago River from the lake for about a mile. To your point, Danny, a lot of people, that's their St. Patrick's Day. They don't even bother getting to the parade.
Exactly.
Like that's the kickoff to their day. And they'll come in from the suburbs off the trains and go right to the river. And then they'll go to the pubs or whatever. But that to me was one of my aha moments in the band where I'm sitting there in between when we were playing and looking around and I'm like, not a lot of people get to do this.
Yeah.
This is pretty uniquely Irish Chicago thing.
And my dad said they would get inquiries from all over the world, including Dublin, and asking, how do you get the river green? But they wouldn't tell.
They wouldn't tell. It's like the recipe for Coke.
Well, it is.
Kept under a lock and key, right?
Yeah. So many countries had tried and failed. But I think Dublin has finally got it down, whatever they're doing. But
Okay.
But we have the advantage too with the reversal of the flow of the Chicago River that there's a very, very slow current in the Chicago River.
Oh, that helped.
So that's what helps it stay green in
For
the one
days.
location.
Yeah.
Sometimes weeks.
Yeah, sometimes
weeks.
we.
Yeah, right.
No, but
It's a great line from The Fugitive where they're standing there and they're waiting to go up to see Richard Kimball's up there and they're like, you know, if they could dye this river green for one day, can they just dye it blue for the other 364 days or whatever? Why can't they do that? It's,
Very true.
yeah, it's pretty funny.
You can't do that in other parts of the world because there's a current. You put the food coloring in, and then it's gone.
Sure.
Half an hour later, it's just going further down the river.
Sure. Well, I don't want to keep us too long here, and you guys have been fantastic. This is as advertised. Anything that you can think of, anything stand out, like these moments in your head, like one trip or one job you played, or any kind of, you've had many over the years, I know, probably an unfair question. But if you can think of one moment where you had where you're like, I'm in the Shannon Rovers and this is pretty cool. Is there anything that comes to mind, or a couple of events or anything like that? Because
Well, I'll go first. The 1968 Democratic Convention. I was down there. So I was 16 years old. We were playing at the Auditorium Theater for Hubert Humphrey. There was going to be a big rally for him. And I remember distinctly, we were waiting and waiting and waiting, as we always used to say in the band, hurry up and wait.
Sure.
You know? So I remember peeking out and going and walking up, to Congress and kind of getting close to Michigan Avenue and seeing the National Guardsmen with their bayonets and standing there at attention, and the Army tanks there too. Like, whoa. And then we went on, a couple days later, we went on to play in the convention down at the amphitheater. We were the only band that was let into the amphitheater. And I do remember all the guys had to take their skiing dues. The Secret Service checked us all out. And then we had a almost like limbo underneath the gate to get in. And then there's a CD that was made, or a movie that was made. It was called Medium Cool. And it's a documentary about the 1968 convention. And at that point, you see the band just coming down. It's in the movie. And you see the band coming down onto the floor, to where the convention stage was. And then we played in the front, and then we marched up again. And, so that was one of the big moments. But briefly, another big one was when we played, for me, in the Vietnam, the first Vietnam parade, thank you parade, the city did. And that was, I could cry now. It was so emotional, that one there. And then playing for the Blackhawks.
Sure. After the Stanley Cup. Yeah.
The Stanley Cup. And of course the St. Patrick's Day Parade. It's always been my favorite too. It never gets old.
Yeah. I always feel like I'm involved with something big when you're standing there. And I was even telling somebody this too. It's like, even the nice people are uptight that morning, because everybody's like, that's the one thing we all got to be buttoned up for is that thing, right? Because we're leading off and everybody's there. And like I say, even the nice guys can be a little persnickety that morning. But I've always felt, I've never taken it for granted where I stand there, and I've marched in 6 parades now or whatever it's been. And you kind of just looking north and you're kind of like, this is pretty cool.
It is. And one last thing I have to say, I've played at a number of funerals, and that has always meant a lot to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
The last thing for the family is the sound of the pipes.
And we inevitably will play Amazing Grace. And I've said this before too, as a bass player, you're not doing a heck of a lot during Amazing Grace, but I always look around, and you've played that song thousands of times in your career,
probably,
right?
Yeah.
For thousands, and you have as well. And there's always somebody, when I'm looking around, who's got the tears in the eyes because they're thinking of their mom or their dad or their husband or their wife or their friend who isn't there. So you can never sleep on how important these events that we play are for these people. For us, it can become routine and habitual almost. But for these people, it's made their day or their week.
Oh, it is. It's a privilege, actually, is what it is. Weddings and funerals and a lot of family events and occasions. It's a privilege to be able to be part of the group that adds to whatever the celebration of life in so many different ways.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
So
I still get goosebumps when we play Gary Owen out on the floor.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
In different engagements we play still.
Yeah.
But for me, would always be the start of the St. Patrick's Day Parade all those years. And another one that comes to mind, when I had 2 St. Patrick's Day parades in 1 year.
Tell us.
Played in the, Tommy Ryan said he was going to take a group back to play in the St. Patrick's Day in Sydney, Australia. So, true to his word, he made it happen, and he took a group of us over there. I played in the parade, and then immediately after the parade, so we wouldn't miss the parade in Chicago, we hopped on a bus and got on a plane and flew back to Chicago to play in the St. Patrick's Day Parade here. So I had 2 St. Patrick's Day parades on the same day.
And that's
with a time difference.
But so how far ahead is Australia? Like 12 hours or something?
Like
or
15
hours?
15, 16,
yeah, 18 hours, something like that.
Yeah.
That's just an incredible achievement of human beings right there. That's something that will probably never be replicated.
Did you stay in uniform on the plane?
I
You
did.
ready to go?
That's what I was going to say.
You did?
To his credit, he was the only one who came off the plane.
Really? Still in gear? Yeah. Why would you change?
Well, right after the parade, could
get a little bristly down there, maybe.
I played the bass drum. So after the parade, somehow I got separated from the group, and this group ushered me into this bar, put me on the bar, and they played the Irish music, and I'm playing the bass drum, and we're having drinks. And I said, geez, I got to get out of here. I said, we're leaving for Chicago. So they stopped a car. We put the bass drum on top of the car, and the driver held this side of the bass drum. It was a very small car. I had the other side, and he drove me back. They had packed my bags up by the time I got back to the hotel and put me on the bus as dressed as I was, my kilt, and flew all the way back to Chicago like that. So I was ready to go as soon as I got off the plane.
So when you roll off the plane, you guys fly into O'Hare or whatever, and then what happened? What time was it?
It was that morning. So I went right from O'Hare Airport downtown to the parade.
I picked him up, and then we went right down from there.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah.
That had to be talked about for years among people in the band. Because how many were there that went to Australia?
It said there was probably 20 of us.
Okay, so that's a pretty big chunk of the band.
And there was Pa Ryan, and Pa Ryan had relatives in Australia. They were from Ireland originally, and that was where a lot of Irish went to Australia. So he said they didn't have a St. Patrick's Day parade. He says, well, we're going to start one. So he did a lot of fundraising back here in order to take the band, and that's a whole other story. He's legend for his fundraising for different things, and he took the band over there, and that was the first St. Patrick's Day parade there, and that's where these guys marched.
That's unbelievable.
That's the way Tommy was. If he had an idea, he was a very forward thinker, and he was a dreamer.
Yeah.
And if he had ideas, he just kept at it until he brought it to fruition. He was amazing that way.
He brought it up at a band meeting that he was going to do this, and everybody kind of laughed it off like it'll never happen. Yeah. But he stayed true to his word.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Did you call him Pa Ryan?
Pa Ryan.
That's
That's the first time
Me too. I heard it, but that's the first time I got it.
He was. When did that start?
I don't know. I mean, when I started teaching, we didn't call him Mr. Ryan. It just became Pa Ryan to us. And pretty soon, especially as he wasn't playing anymore and he was around, but he wasn't actively playing, he became Pa Ryan to everybody. He had started another group of young fiddle players called the Emerald Strings. And this is another one of his dreams. And then they played all these little different places and that. So I think because he had so many young people, they called him Pa. And that's what his family called him. Even his kids they all called him Pa. Jerry called him Pa. So it just became his nickname. He was Pa Ryan.
What was his day job? He's putting bands together. He's starting St. Patrick's Day parades in Australia. What did he do during the day?
He worked over at Mayfair at the pumping station. Is that the sanitary district he worked for then? Or
Not Pa Ryan.
yeah, he worked over there too.
CTA. He was the driver.
Well, he initially was CTA, but when he left the CTA, he came here. He worked for the CTA when he first came over here from Ireland. But then he eventually, when I knew him, he was working at the Mayfair pumping station. So is that sanitary district or is that
That would
Cook
be
County or I don't know?
water management, right? Mayfair?
Well, that's what they call it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
So-
whatever it was called at the time with the city.
That's what was he? Maybe a stationary engineer? Was that a stationary engineer? I guess that's
Yeah.
probably what he was. So
But
he
$3.99, right?
Yeah.
a lot of time to dream and plan it. Maybe
I'd
when he's at
say.
work.
Yeah, how about it?
And
Well, he
he-
lived the dream. He lived his dream.
And
But he was a builder, too.
he owned he was a builder. He owned a lot of real
Houses.
estate.
Yeah.
Oh, he owned a lot of real estate. He came here. Yeah.
Boy, Horner, we've really done nothing with our lives, have we?
I'm incredibly disappointed in myself.
Yeah.
What are we doing, man?
I know,
Yeah,
right?
what are we
And
doing?
he had 8 children. Or no, 7 children. 7? Wait. 5, 7 children. He had 7
Okay.
children. Yeah. And a wonderful wife. She was amazing, his wife Julia. She was nice lady, but she always cleaned up after him. Like she said, every one of these, he would buy a home. He moved the family there. You're moving 9 people into this home. He'd fix it up and then he'd sell it again and move to the next one. And she said, there I was cleaning up, you know.
That's why she was serving the ice cream.
Probably.
Yeah,
Right. Move to the next house.
Right.
No,
Well,
she was a very
I
nice
have
lady.
no doubt that Pa Ryan and his wife would be very proud of the tradition of the Rovers, and we're celebrating our 100th. And you cannot write the history of this band without the Boyles. So thank you so much for being here and doing this for us. And if we need you again, hopefully we can call you up and get some stories. Noreen, I know where to find you, and you've always got a story or two. So
That's the way this started.
Very nice.
And thank you for welcoming me into the band too. It meant a lot. It still does.
You've been a
So
great
thanks.
addition.
Yeah.
Both you fellas.
Yeah.
Make sure you put that at the front of the pod.
Yeah.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks so much for listening. For more information, events and history, stories about the Shannon Rovers, visit our website at shannonrovers.com.
And don't be shy about booking us for your next event. A Shannon Rovers experience is not to be missed. And ask for that Pat and Marc discount. It's actually a premium.